Well, welcome, beautiful people. I'm Reverend Christina Garza, and I'm here with the amazing Reverend Kurt Conja. Very different. And this Sunday is a whole brand new experience. We're testing out our equipment. We're testing out this new format. And so we're rolling with it. We're having fun, and we're just allowing the Spirit to just lead. So with that said, what do you got for us, Rev?
We've got some kind of different things planned. We're going to incorporate a ritual into the experience this morning. And then rather than a traditional message, Reverend Christina and I are going to riff. We picked out a couple of quotes on the theme for this morning's talk. And then we'll sort of discuss back and forth how those quotes relate to our own spiritual unfolding and our own spiritual growth and development. As you know, the theme for this month has been about living in grace. And it's really about moving into a space, an openness, an availability to Spirit in which we don't have to push, we don't have to struggle, but there is the divine power of God that can lift us up and support us as we move through these kind of challenging times. So we've been looking at different dimensions and different aspects of how we allow grace more fully to express in our lives. This morning, our theme is about the grace of giving. And it's oddly enough, Reverend Christina was doing some research online and found this really cool quote that actually had grace of giving in it. So we borrowed that slide and we're off and running. So you want to introduce that first quote?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a setup for this particular Bible passage. So this is Paul speaking, and he's talking to the congregation, to the followers of Jesus, to the Christians in Corinth. And he's actually referencing another community that he's worked with in Macedonia. And so he's talking to them about the idea that, in Macedonia, the situation was even more dire than for other Christians, perhaps even in Corinth. And so there was extreme poverty, there was extreme persecution. And so he's telling them that despite all of that, that perhaps because of all of that, their hearts were wide open and ready to just be vessels for the Spirit. And so part of what they did was not just invest in their time and their talent, but they were also investing in their treasure. And so he was telling the people of Corinth in this letter, because they're written as letters, about the idea of actually giving of your wealth and your prosperity and what that means. And so he's talking there about the fact that it's one thing to be faithful. It's one thing to be able to talk about being a follower of Jesus. It's one thing to talk about being the presence incarnate, to being part of the flow of Spirit. But if we're not giving of ourselves, we've really truncated our ability to do that. So he's encouraging and challenging the community here to be able to think through how this aspect of actually giving can open them up to a deeper way of being in community with each other and community and in faith and in connection with the Spirit. So I just wanted to give that setup a little bit because that's really important to kind of understand where this is at. So what do you think about that, Rev Kurt? What do you think about what Paul is sort of conveying here to the Corinthians here?
I think, well, and you had mentioned this earlier, that actually a part of our spiritual journey has to involve that level of giving, of making ourselves available to others. And one of the things that we've been discussing in terms of what it means to be giving, what it means to be prosperous, what it means to be abundance, is that it feels like there's a shift going on, at least in unity circles, about what prosperity and abundance really means to us. There was a time, 80s and 90s, when I was growing up and all the prosperity courses that were going on, when it was really about living our deepest dreams and really reaching out for the stuff that we most desired in our hearts. And I think especially these days, and especially with younger generations, it's shifting a bit. And it's not so much about what I want to achieve or what I want to enjoy, but it's about what's best for the collective, what's best for the community. How does that get expanded? And somebody had texted me that we can see you using your phone. Well, I'm using my phone because I wanted to find the other half of the quote that Reverend Christina had used. So can I continue with the piece?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
We have that as a slide, so we can move forward in the next slide.
Oh, good. So we ended with the grace of giving. And it's our desire is not that others might be relieved while you are hard pressed, but that there be equality. At the present time, I think this is where the slide picks up. At the present time, your plenty will supply what they need, so that in turn, their plenty will supply what you need. The goal is equality, as it is written. The one who gathered much did not have too much. The one who gathered little did not have too little. And what I love about that is it really calls us to be mindful about really making sure that it's a world that works for all, to sort of tag team on kind of unity's understanding. But that it's really in our giving, it's important that what we're mindful of is that it's not just about our own personal good and well-being, that we're really reaching out and extending ourselves in ways that create equity and balance in the world. That seems so important right now. And it's not just so that somebody else is doing better. It's not, Charles Fillmore talks about this in a quote a little bit later, that it's not about charitable contributions. Like we're all bringing and giving to the level that's appropriate for our own spiritual growth and development in our own journey. So the grace of giving, I think, really flows most freely when it's coming out of a sense of truly we are in this together. There is a collective experience in this human journey in which we are one another's keepers. And that, I think, is where we really begin to open up a space in our hearts where we're truly living from a compassionate kind of energy. And it comes back to support us as well. It's that whole circle of life stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what I love about this particular passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 is that it's talking about a couple of things, right? So as you mentioned, and I'll get to that in a little bit, the idea of equality and not about this uber abundance, because that's what we're used to, right? In our culture, this idea of consumerism and abundance and more means more. But the idea that we have to give with an open heart and with joy. If you look in that passage in Corinthians, he's talking about the fact that the Macedonians are giving with joy. And that becomes an important factor so that when we're tithing, for example, whether it's our treasure, our time, or our talent, we have to do it with that open and giving heart, because if we don't, it becomes hypocritical, doesn't it? It becomes truncating our own spiritual kind of growth, our own spiritual connection, if we're doing it with an attitude of that's not receptive, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it, really, to remember that when we do give, we have to give with an open heart. We have to give with joy. And no matter what we're giving, we have to understand that it is supply from the Spirit that we are outpouring into the world. And so it's really the spirit that we're bringing to our giving that really is important as well. And then with that said, it's not about I have only a little bit to give or a little time to give. It's not going to make a difference. Let someone else do it. It's the idea that we're all giving, and then everything is important in spirit. When we're looking at a spiritual realm, it's not about quantities, it's about quality. So again, it's that idea that we have to think through how we are bringing this concept of the grace of giving into our lives, and that it's not about, again, accumulation. It's not the charity, right? So as Reverend Kurt flagged, we're used to in our culture this idea of I'm going to give because it makes me feel good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also something really important to understand as truth students, as folks in faith, that it's a bigger than just that. It's a bigger than just about let me feel good. It's about how is it that we're becoming channels of the divine good. Any other thoughts on that, or should we move on to
Well,
the
as long
next
as we're on
slide?
the charitable thing, I want to this is from Charles Fillmore, his book Prosperity, and it speaks to this idea about making sure that when we're giving out of a sense of joy. There's 2 points I want to make. I'll do them fairly quickly.
Go for it. I love it.
First is in terms of the energy that we bring to our giving. I mean, that can be really practical. This morning, as we got together, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folks here on the live stream team. And except for the work that we've done together, we haven't seen each other in like 9 months. So I was just sitting back kind of watching this morning at how joyfully people were just, the conversations that used to be normal on Sundays, we were able to experience those today. We're all wearing masks, we're safe distancing, we're doing all the precautionary stuff, but there was a sense of joy that arises out of their willingness to be of service in this creating a different way of being together. And I think that joy is available to all of us, no matter what it is that we're giving, whether it's of time, of talent, of treasure, of wisdom, but to be sure that we're sort of tuned in to being really present to what is and how we can connect and share in an equitable way. And then the Charles thing on the charity stuff. This is how he sort of describes it, because it's a tricky one. We said that this like giving in a way that's going to be equitable, so that truly all boats are rising, and not have it be something where it's well. Here's what Charles says. He says, "Do not give with any idea that you are bestowing charity. The idea of charity has infested the race consciousness for thousands of years and is responsible for the great army of human dependence. Do all you can to annul this mental error. There is no such thing as charity as popularly understood. Everything belongs to God, and all his children are equally entitled to it. The fact that one has a surplus and gives some of it to another does not make the one a benefactor and the other a dependent. The one with the surplus is simply a steward of God and is merely discharging the work of his stewardship." I love that in our giving, we are stewards of like divine gifts, however they manifest, you know? Love is a divine gift, and to be a steward of that, where it's part of my spiritual unfoldment and growth and development to be able to give of that generously, of love and of every other way there is to give. Yeah. Whew.
That's a perfect segue to our next slide about spiritual gifts. It's a quote from Pablo Picasso, the famous artist, and it says, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." And that's a beautiful, beautiful concept of being able to understand, as you just so pointed out, Reverend Kurt, that we're stewards of these gifts, that we are coming into this iteration of life to be able to connect with those spiritual gifts that we have, because we all have them. You know, sometimes we forget. So our job is to remember, not just to remember that we are all the anointed ones, that we are all the ones to bring forth peace into the world, that we are all the ones to bring forth this equality and this all boats rising together. We forget that because we are all here for a divine purpose. And part of that is finding out, or just allowing. I wouldn't say finding out, because again, we're so conditioned to think that we've got to put this like really massive thought process. Now, again, when we think about what gifts we're bringing to the world, yes, it becomes a planning process and all of that. But the crux of all of this is that allowing, right? That opening up, that allowing for spirit to just flow through us and guide our steps to be able to move forward. And the thing that I love about that quote is that it reminds us that if we're not doing this, we're actually shortchanging the world. We're sanctuary. So we're talking about the idea of spiritual gifts, right? So I implore everyone, if there's things that you're thinking about today, if there's things that you've been thinking about, like that you're called to at the very core of your soul, maybe you want to bake, maybe you want to be able to sing, maybe you want to start some sort of business. Know that those are divinely inspired ideas. And so by you being able to have the ability to make those manifest, you are actually blessing the world. So we're figuring out, as the quote says, we're allowing for those spiritual gifts to come through, and then we're allowing for us to be able to give them into the world.
So Maya Angelou, we also have a beautiful quote from Maya Angelou. This one actually both of us chose to use, and maybe you've heard it before. Maya writes, "I have found that among its other benefits, giving liberates the soul of the giver." And I'd also seen a really cool description of what it means, what liberation, what freedom means in this sense. That freedom is about being so present to what's happening, the exchange of energies, the exchange in the moment, that there's no concept of what had gone before. You know, there's not a past, there's not a present. It's about being liberated to fully engage in what's happening in that moment. And to be able to live from that kind of okay, we're moving some things around. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm not. June, will you nod? I can see you. Thank you. Yeah. So Maya Angelou, just that beautiful notion of this to receive. It's kind of the same thing. That we free ourselves from our own sense of limitation. We free ourselves. Maybe you've experienced this even. Like there's a point when you're feeling maybe a little bit down or depressed, and by actually getting out and actually sort of using energy and extending yourself to someone else, that it frees us of whatever that was. And the same thing is true no matter what it is, the gift that we're giving, whatever it is that we're bringing. As we give that and give that generously, then it actually uplifts our hearts. You know, all boats rise because we're willing to extend ourselves in that first way. Yeah. Whew. Let's see. So we have one more quote, and then I think we'll move into the experience that we have in mind for us this morning. This last quote is from Charles Fillmore, and it's a nice segue into the ritual that we have planned. This is also from the book Prosperity, and the quote goes like this. He writes, "Put real substance into your gift by giving the substance of the heart with the token of money or whatever it is." So what we're talking about here is the energy that we bring to in our giving, right? If we're coming from a level of consciousness, a space in consciousness when it's joyful, if we're coming from a space that's lighthearted and truly out of compassion and love, then it actually magnifies the gift, not only of that who is receiving it, but for ourselves. So part of what I'm wanting us to do this morning is to try and experience that, experience moving into that space of higher level consciousness, that space of the substance that we're bringing to our giving, being something that is just a tremendous blessing. And the ritual that I've suggested that we use is that of communion. Now I know even by saying that word, just the word communion, maybe those from liturgical backgrounds or Catholic backgrounds have an idea of what communion means, and maybe it's favorable, maybe you have wonderful mystical experience, maybe it's not so favorable. Whatever it is, I'm asking you for this experience this morning to maybe let go of your preconceptions about it, right? And so I want you to participate in this, right? To do this from home. So I'm going to begin by inviting you to think about taking a trip to your kitchen here very quickly. And I'm going to ask you to grab something out of the cupboard that can represent substance, that can represent the bread of life, that represents the body of Christ, right? And we'll work down through what those might mean for us. But it can be literally anything, right? Christina has brought in some, what are they, banana chips?
Plantain chips.
Some plantain chips that she will be using to represent substance that we will be intaking. I brought a granola bar. There's some chocolate here. So literally, substance can be anything because it's about the intention that we bring to this experience where we're going to try and be in community in a way that we can maybe experience on the Zoom stuff. The same is true for the drink, right? Like in the traditional communion experience, in that Eucharist kind of experience, drink would be as Jesus invited his followers at the Last Supper, would be blood. We're representing blood. In unity, our context for that is spirit. It represents spirit that we will sort of be imbibing on. And so we'll be working it that way. So it starts out as blood. In the Catholic tradition, it might be wine or grape juice, and then this morning we're going to use whatever you can find in your kitchen.
Go away and do that. In the meantime, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the meaning that we're bringing to this experience, right? Because we have, for most part, not been together in community and communion with one another now for 9 months. So this is a way in which we can begin to sort of tap into the energy of connection, because we know that ultimately at the spiritual realm and the realm of the divine, we are connected anyway at a soul level. So that's really what we're wanting to tap through this ritual, is to really begin to experience that in maybe a different way that is only made possible through the miracle of this technology and this remote stuff. What I'm going to suggest, and I've been looking at Matthew Fox has a beautiful cosmic kind of experience of communion, and so I'm borrowing a little bit of that. But as you begin to, I would invite you to, if you've got your substance. As I mentioned, mine is sort of a granola bar. Christina, you're on camera too. You want to grab a banana chip? Only what I would invite you to do is just go ahead and look at whatever it is that you've chosen, whatever element you're using as a part of this experience.
And just begin to, and this is actually from Thich Nhat Hanh too, imagine that what it represents, and not even what it represents, what it is really an embodiment or a manifestation of the cosmos. That sounds really, really big, I know. Except that if you begin to think about, my granola bar here has, I don't know, there's some nuts, there's some oats. All of those are plants that sort of grew out of the earth. All of those were nurtured by the rains that fell from the sky. And so as we really look at the substance of what this is, the substance is really out of the cosmos. It's a miracle that this granola bar has been brought to me in this form. And just as Jesus invited his followers to eat this bread in remembrance of him, we can do the same thing. We eat this element in remembrance that we are connected far beyond what we typically remind ourselves of, right? There is a oneness to the divine. There's a oneness to the energy of the sun, to the turning of the planets, to all of the cosmos that gets sort of created or formed in these elements that we will be taking into our bodies. So there's a mystical aspect to this that can actually remind us that we are connected, that we are one with the divine, that we are one with all that is. And by simply taking and eating of this, there's no more sort of powerful symbol of bringing that oneness into a greater sense of fruition. Yes? So I'd like you to maybe, I'm going to invite Deidre to sing now as sort of a preparation, and just begin to contemplate whatever the elements are that you have chosen to represent substance and to represent spirit, the liquid that you'll be drinking. Just think, consider, ponder, be present to how all of the energies of the universe have conspired to create those elements so that we can enjoy this experience and eating them together here and now. Yes? So Deidre, if you could take it away with the preparation song, so blessed.
I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I do is a blessing to the world. Let's do share. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am share, and all I share is a blessing to the world. Give. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I give is a blessing to the world.
And we know truly that we are blessed. So I invite you now to whatever the substance is that you have chosen to be a part of this ritual that we're experiencing together, I would invite you to take and eat in remembrance of your divinity, of who you truly are. All right, now I'm going to take it one step further here. So as we prepare now to drink of the Spirit, of the blood, of the wine, of the Spirit, right? That cosmic representation of our connection to all that is, of the Spirit coming together with the substance to create the form of our lives. So I would invite you to consider, if you would, turning on your camera and maybe switching to gallery view. Jesus did this in community, in communion with his followers. And while many of us have not been together in months and months and months, at least in this way, we can recognize the beauty in the faces of those that we worship with, of those that we have committed to spiritually grow with. And I know some of you are not comfortable turning on your camera. This isn't an imperative. But what I would suggest is that in this moment, that your presence, your image on screen can really be a powerful gift to the rest of us, a powerful reminder that we truly are connected in spirit beyond what can be experienced if we were all in this building together. So just consider nobody's going to be judging. It's really about just making ourselves fully present and available in this moment to give what we can and to receive of that in the same way. So I invite you to turn on your cameras, and Christina and I have each chosen to represent spirit for us, or wine and grape juice or blood. You've got what? You've got a kombucha. And I brought A&W root beer. It's what I had in my refrigerator at home. So we know that these elements that we drink and imbibe and eat today together in this experience, that they are representative of all of the energies that conspire to create. Out of divine mind come these ideas, and those ideas are clothed in the substance of divine substance, and they're combined with spirit that's represented by the liquid we're drinking. And we know our oneness. We know our divinity. We know that we are connected beyond the restrictions of COVID, right? That we are one. And this is an opportunity for us to remember that and to maybe even feel and experience it. So do this in remembrance of not only your divinity, but the divinity of all those that are part of this Unity North Shore community, and indeed with all the world. So what I would invite you into now is just an awareness that as we come from this belief, this understanding, this divine connection, that's a higher level of consciousness. And that's the level of consciousness that Charles had invited us to be giving from. That's the level of consciousness that I invite you to bring into a time of meditation. Ann Baker, who is an amazing sort of medical intuitive and spiritual energetic healer, is going to lead us in a meditation. And I would invite you to be sure that as we move into this meditative experience, that we're coming at it from this energy that we've been sort of cultivating, knowing that there's a greater truth, there's a greater connection than we might experience with our physical eyes. There's a greater degree of seeing, a higher level of consciousness that we bring to our giving. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Ann Baker.
Okay. So I invite you all to close your eyes and get ready for a time of meditation. And turn within and begin with a welcoming breath. Welcome yourself with your inhale. And use your exhale as a natural letting go and settling into this moment. And for this meditation, we're going to create coherence between the brain or the mind and the heart. And as you do that with the group, it creates a group coherence, a really powerful energy. So I invite you to bring all of your awareness to the heart. We're going to imagine that the breath is coming in and out of the heart. We'll inhale to a count of 4 and exhale to a count of 6. As you're imagining this breath coming in and out of your heart. So inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll continue that pace. And I invite you to call to mind someone or something that you are grateful for. And really bring that image to your mind and your heart, allowing those feelings of gratitude to fill and open your heart. All the while allowing the heart to be breathing you. And now I invite you to call to mind something about yourself that you're grateful for. What quality, what grace is naturally you that you express? It's been a hard year. What quality have you had that have helped you get through this year, helped others get through this year? Just allow yourself to feel that appreciation for this beautiful gift that you naturally express. In fact, you can't help but express it. You can affirm, I am divine presence through this quality. Imagine turning this quality into light. And as we do this, we can imagine that we take each other's hands, create this big virtual circle. And as we gaze into each other's eyes, we shine this light to each other. Just allow yourself to receive that too. And then we turn around and hold hands again, but this time we're facing outwards. And we shine that beautiful quality, that light, out to the world that so desperately needs it. And before we open our eyes, just pay attention, notice how it feels in your body and your mind and your heart to be standing in your gift as the presence of the divine. Okay, take a deep breath and open your eyes.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. Let's sing that again. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
Wow. Thank you, Anne. So beautiful. And thank you, Dedre. Just, yeah, I feel as though we have collectively given this amazing gift out to the world. So thank you for leading us into that. Just beautiful.
Hey, thanks for watching this YouTube video. If Unity's message of positive spiritual living resonates with you, I hope you'll subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date on other lessons as we post them. Also, if you're able to support us financially in the work that we do in the world, please check below for contact information. You can visit our website, find more about what programming we offer, as well as how to give. Blessings.